All right, everyone. Welcome to today's Leader to Leader. We have so much for our awesome panelists to share today. We're going to go ahead and get started right out of the gate. Once we get going with the panel, I'll make sure that everybody has an opportunity to introduce themselves. So we have a great panel of people today. We've got Mr. Steve Carlson, who many of you recognize and knows, past president and principal of the year from Sandusky Junior Senior High School. We are hoping to connect with Rafe Rittenhouse, the superintendent of Gull Lake Community Schools. We have Marie Schulter, who's the director of innovative learning from Redford Union School District. We have Mark Thomas, who is also a past president and principal of the year from Northview High School, and super excited to have Dr. Nikolai Vitti with us today, the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Community District. We always kind of start with this disclaimer, reminding everybody that as we go through today's session, that these are always recorded and posted. So if you hear something today from a panelist that you'd like to follow up on or share with someone else, that we will have this recording up hopefully by Friday, and it will go in headlines on Monday. Before we begin, a couple of things that we always like to remind you about is at the bottom of your screen. I know you're all Zoom professionals by now, but in the chat, that's our kind of introduction place where you might be able to connect with other administrators who you might happen to know. But when you want to actually ask a question of one of the panelists or of an MASSP staff member, put that right in the Q&A box. And we are going to have each panelist take about 5 to 8 minutes to kind of explain their district's approach or plan for instruction in the fall. Of course, understanding that all of these things are highly subjective to change, but we want them to particularly focus on what their remote and or hybrid learning options are for students. So that's going to be our focus today. So when we start, we're going to go in alphabetical order, and we're going to start with Steve Carlson. And Steve will kind of give us an overview of what his plans are for Sandusky. And if you have a question for Steve, you can put that right in the Q&A. And when Steve's done speaking, he will look at those questions and he might be able to answer some of those to you in writing. Others he will mark as answer in person. And when we're done with all of the presentations, we'll go back to those questions. So please know that we are definitely monitoring your Q&A. We do, as mentioned, have both the slide deck that we'll use and the recording will be available and posted on our website. So that's kind of all our introductory things today. If I haven't met you before, my name is Wendy Zadeb, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. And joining us from the MASSP staff, we also have Ryan Casey, who's our Director of Digital Learning. And we have Colin Rittmaster, who's our kind of jack of all trades and do everything at MASSP. He's the associate director and certainly couldn't do anything without our Colin, so glad to have him with us as well. So we're going to get started and get right down to business because we want to make sure that each of our panelists has an opportunity to share kind of what's going on. And some of them have slides and some of them are just going to speak. So either of those options are going to be fantastic. So we're going to start, as mentioned, in alphabetical order, and we're going to start with Steve Carlson, who is from Sandusky Junior Senior High School in the Thumb of Michigan. Steve, could you just tell us just a tad about the district, the size of your school, and maybe total student population?
Absolutely. Thank you, Wendy, and thanks everyone for being here. Excited to share our story, such as it is right now. More excited to learn and grow from the others on the panel. And I don't have any slides to share, and as I get into it, you'll kind of know why, because we're very much building this. But like I said, I'm happy to share where we're at right now. We're in Sanilac County, as Wendy mentioned. We have 2 buildings. We have a K-6 building, and I'm the principal of the 712 building. Approximately 1,020 students, K-12. My building, is the 712 building, has about 460 students. And I think context of where we were at as a district when it comes to things like LMS and our content is really important in telling our story, because I think a lot of you may be, in our situation. So we had been utilizing Google Classroom sort of as teachers wanted to, and I had a lot of teachers that were using it with really good effect, and I had other teachers who were kind of more, wasn't their thing. So when we went into our initial shutdown, our first step was to lift all the staff up to at least a novice ability with Google Classroom. And for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, we got to the end of the year utilizing Google Classroom with our staff and students. We felt that our proficiencies within Google Classroom as a staff, and that so many of our students had been exposed to it, really gave us a leg up on districts that hadn't been doing that work, from talking to colleagues that didn't at least have Google Classroom as part of their toolkit. I think we were able to do some things that other districts weren't able to do. But we also realized pretty quickly that utilizing Google Classroom, while good at many things, it wasn't able to allow us to do all the things that we might want to do. So one of the things that we've tried to keep in mind here at Sandusky is be mindful, of course, of this huge challenge in front of us, but what opportunities do we have in this challenge? And so our district largely waited until the roadmap came out to really sit down and put pen to paper on what our plan was going to look like. We certainly had been brainstorming, we had some ideas, but we didn't want to get too far out in front until we knew the scope of the roadmap. So since the roadmap has come out, sort of in order, things we've done: number one, we surveyed our parents and asked them specific questions about, if we're in phases 1 through 3 where we have to be remote, would you want devices loaned by the school? We're not a one-to-one district, but we're kind of in a position where we have enough Chromebooks that we think we can meet the needs of families that would appreciate the use of Chromebooks, and maybe even as needed, some families could even get 2 Chromebooks if they have multiple students. So if we're fully remote, would you appreciate a device? And then in phase 4, understanding that a mask would be a requirement, not an encouragement, but a straight requirement. How many of you would prefer a fully online option? Sandusky Community Schools has never had a fully online option, but we recognize that we need to support that this year. With masks, it's something like 40% of our parents that responded, and we had close to a 50-60% response rate. With masks in the equation, we've got about 40% of our families indicating they would appreciate an online option. So we know that that's something we have to create. And then, of course, in phase 5, where masks would be more of an encouraged thing, an optional thing, we still have about 10% of our families that say, in a sense, I think they're saying, until there's better treatment or vaccine, we want to be fully remote. So we understand that we have to do some things we've never done before. And so the crucial step of surveying the parents about what they might do within different phases was crucial for us in determining how we want to set about this. The next thing that we did was, it seems really easy, but it was super important. We got teachers on board, and so both the K-6 principal and myself have teachers on our committee. In fact, my most recent committee meeting with our teachers ended about 2 hours ago. Oh, no, I'm sorry, about 1 hour ago. And with that committee, we started with, hey, what might we want to do from an LMS standpoint that Google Classroom hasn't been letting us do? I don't, in my time here, I don't want to get too much into which LMS we're looking at. We kind of have it narrowed down to 2. But we also recognize that a lot of our teachers, as we never really had a fully virtual option, the content that they would teach, in some respects, very easy to conceptualize that face-to-face, but became very hard for us in many cases remotely. So we are also looking at content options. And again, that's something I can get into in a Q&A, because I'm certainly not here to promote one LMS or one source for some content. But those are things that our teachers expressed that they needed. They would certainly benefit from having some content that they could fall back on, not just for times where we might be fully remote, but also to supplement them in the face-to-face, knowing that we're going to have to be able to weave in and out, we anticipate, from phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5. we want to be able to be nimble as we make those movements. And then in knowing from our parents that so many of them are desiring an online option, we put it out to our teachers. What do you want to do with this? Everything from, do you want this essentially to be outsourced so it is not something you have to worry about and you would only have to focus on the students that are face-to-face, or do you want to have the challenge of teaching the online students as well? And what our teachers are saying is those are our students and we are their teachers, and this is our challenge, and we will rise and we will meet it. So from a building leadership point, that was very empowering to hear that our committee is committed to doing what they need to do. Committing to do it and doing it, of course, are very different things. So where we're at right now in terms of instruction and delivery is we're trying to decide which LMS is going to be best for us. We're looking at some supplemental content from some different vendors that won't necessarily replace what we are doing, but will provide our teachers with that extra resource that we didn't have in the spring. We really value that it's content that was designed to be taught online, as opposed to our teachers trying to do something they've never had to do before, which is take the face-to-face content and convert it into something that works online. So we know we'll have to do heavy lift with LMS training, and we also, to me more importantly, the LMS training, that's going to come. People will figure out how to do that, but it's more, how do I become an effective online teacher? Right now, Sanilac County, where I live and work, we're in phase 4. So we could start face-to-face based on the current roadmap. There's a lot of discussion within our committee that we won't be in phase 4. There is a lot of assumption that we're going to start the year fully remotely, and of course that's not a decision our district has made, nor is it an edict that's come from the state. But we are trying to plan for whatever may come, and our teachers are looking at teaching the students that would show up in the classroom. They're looking at teaching the online students as well. For the online students, we're envisioning that to be asynchronous learning. And for the face-to-face students, of course, that's largely going to be synchronous. So that's where we're at. We're a district, like I said, that we had the benefit of Google Classroom as a tool in our toolbox, and that all the way to June. But as we look to, instead of landing the plane, as we look to getting the plane off, we know that we have to have a little more oomph behind it, and that's where our process is at.
Thank you so much, Steve, for kind of giving us that summary of where you are. It's been interesting talking to principals and superintendents around the state. I'm hearing a lot of like regional collaboration for providing that online instruction, but your teachers felt that they wanted to take that on for their students. And has there been any discussion about regional collaboration in your area?
There's been, not in the sense that you mentioned it, but there's been very strong regional collaboration within the principals and at the superintendent level within the superintendents in the county. I'd be very remiss not to give a shout out to my good friend Brad Hale, who I did see is logged in today. Because while we waited a little bit for the roadmap, he in Brown City and his district, they didn't wait. They were putting pen to paper sooner. So I've had the great benefit to collaborate with all the principals in the county, and Brad's really taken a strong leadership role there. As far as a regional approach to the online learning, no, that is not something that we're anticipating at this time. I don't know if it's something that at the superintendent level has been or hasn't been discussed. But right now, the school districts in Sanilac County, as I understand it, we're all looking to sort of onboard our own virtual learning programs.
Well, great. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
We are going to jump to Marie, and I've been following Marie on Twitter, and that's always the way that we connect with all the other really smart people, right? So Marie has been posting about the online learning academy that she runs in Redford Union Schools, and so that really caught my attention, and I gave her a call, and before you know it, she's on the panel. So I'm looking forward to having Marie share her work with you, because this isn't a new process for Redford Union entirely. And so it's interesting to hear from a district that has had, an online presence for quite a while. So thank you so much for being with us today, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
We're good? Okay. So I'm Marie Schluter. I'm the proud director of the Innovative Learning Center for Redford Union Schools. And first of all, I'm very grateful to be a part, to have this opportunity and share my passion with all of you. And I'm honored to be a part of this panel. So I want to first say thank you very much. I'm very passionate about this program. And what we did is 2 years ago, so this is a plane built and flying. So if some of you feel like you're building the plane, I'm hoping that maybe you can learn from some of this, because we're 2 years into this now. We just completed our second year of our Innovative Learning Center. And we were approved for an EEM building code under our alternative education program. So we're not a charter. We're not an academy. We are a program under the roof of Redford Union School District. So I want to make that clear that we're not a charter school. So our enrollment has gone up each year pretty steadily, and I can say with extreme happiness that our retention rate has been really solid, and kids are really enjoying this program. So the foundation to our program is basically relationships, relationships, relationships. I'm sure you all know that at this point, that is truly one of the foundations to help us get these kids to the finish line. But this program is also, we also did this with very intentional with the brain research. So I've been studying brain research for the last 7 years, and I'm very much in favor of looking at other professions besides education. So talking to the neuroscientists, studying their work, looking what are the pediatricians telling us, what are the social workers and psychologists telling us, and the psychiatrists. I'm also a social worker by nature as well. So helping these kids figure out, when they come to us, is this a kid who is coming from a trauma situation? Is this kid, what can we help this kid do to feel safe before they can comprehend and learn anything that we give to them? So when they come to us, part of the registration process is that we have to do an EDP, an education development plan. And so once we figure out what type of learner they are, and this form is sort of the summary of the 20 question survey that they do with us that we got from our auditor. We worked really closely with our auditor. We had our first year audit, and we passed with 100%. So I was very happy with that we were on the right track. But once the student feels safe, we try and figure out what type of a learner are they. I see a lot of bad things about virtual learning online, about, kids won't stay on task. Well, of course they won't. That's okay. The nature of their brain is they're not going to. I mean, how many of us right now are on our cell phones texting someone while you're also looking at a webinar? I mean, we multitask is just a nature of the human brain, but their young brains are really hard for them to comprehend all of that information. So they need a lot of brain breaks. So what we do is we teach them to embrace the distractions, identify it, and then find a strategy that works for them to get back on track. We don't shame them for not being able to stay focused for a long time. We just give them grace and teach them to give themselves grace when they have those distractions. I also use myself as, I'm gonna go back here for a second. I also use myself when I'm doing the registration with them, because I'm a big visual learner, which is why I wanted to do the presentation like this, because I need to see things. My brain is really, really excited to learn something when I see it. Give me a bowl of popcorn and a Coca-Cola, and my brain is happy and ready to learn. But put a book in front of me and my brain's like, oh, okay, I gotta sit down and read the book. And that's just because I'm an athlete and I'm used to being active. And so for me, the visual learning that's my go-to. So once we figure out, okay, what have you been struggling with? Why is virtual learning really, you think, is a good fit for you? How can we help you then be accountable and participate in this program? Because this is how it's set up. So we set it up with 2 required contacts per week with a teacher. The requirement is really 1, but we built in quality assurance pieces to catch, so that if the kid doesn't contact the teacher twice a week, that 1 piece still meets the requirement for the audits. And we do this year round. This isn't just a during count period. We do this year round. We have the flexible learning lab hours for kids who work, and there is absolutely no excuse for communication. I emphasize with every kid and every parent, communication is the key to life. So you have to really learn how to communicate. Now, the way that we do our communication with this is that, which parents love, is we do a group text with, because we have Google Voice, and then we have the teacher, the student, and the parent do a group text. So there's no shenanigans. The parent can see at all times what's being sent to their kid from the teacher of, hey, it looks like you stopped, you know, on algebra number 9, were you stuck, or did you need help with that? So we set up multiple ways for them to communicate with us, so there's absolutely no excuse not to communicate with the teacher. Also, there's lots of opportunities for them to take additional courses, and then they get a Redford Union High School diploma. Not a high school diploma, I'm sorry, a Redford Union School District diploma, because we have 18 credits to graduate and the high school has 22. But we can't offer band, we can't offer choir, so we have what the state the state mandate is for graduation, which is 18 credits. So if you're doing this and you're thinking, okay, maybe we should do this for our school, this is 4 things that you need for an audit. And I wish I would have had this ahead of time, because I went in blind and had to figure it all out. But I had some good guidance and some people that I'd reached out to and gone and visited other programs. And Dr. Shivers was a fabulous mentor for this as well. So basically these 4 things, if you have an audit, must be in place for virtual learning. You have to have a full schedule of classes. You have to have the online parent permission. You have to have the EDT dated and signed, and you have to have the contact log notes, which is a 2-way communication. That's teacher to student, student to teacher, teacher back to student. Huge. If you don't have that, you don't get the FTE for the student. So with all that work and structure, then we talk to the student about, okay, so if this is a program for you, this is how we have to work as a team with your parent to structure this. So the expectation is 6 hours a day. Just like if you go to school, you have a first hour class, a second hour class, a third hour, fourth hour, you're in school for 6 hours. But realistically, is 6 hours healthy for a kid to be online? No. And I tell them flat out, no, it's not. And I'm the director of the virtual learning program, and I'm telling you it's not. But you have to build in your brain breaks. So when you set this up each day with your student and your parent, as a team, you figure out what are your strengths? What brings you joy? What is your brain break? Is it colors? Is it your animal? Is it your cat? Is it nature? Is it playing your instrument? We have kids that bring in their instruments for their brain break. So even though they probably are going to do 4 hours a day, again, the 6 hours is sort of that quality assurance piece is sort of built in to go between 4 and 6, which is more the realistic expectation. So what is a high school credit? Kids come in with the completely wrong perception of what is a high school credit and how do I obtain a high school credit. They think if they're 17 and they have 6 credits, they're automatically a senior. We go through the process of explaining an in-depth conversation of how it's earned, what is a transcript, and then we give them the visual of this is, if you have 6 credits, you're technically a sophomore. But then we map it out on this form that we use, and we map it out of this is how old you are now, when is your birthday, how many semesters, how many classes do you have to get to that finish line, so that they can see the end finish line. So here's like the core of our, one of the core pieces of our program is we use XEdgenuity. So this is like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and this is the Oz behind the scenes. So XEdgenuity is our platform that we use, and this is what the parent will see. But behind the scenes, we also use Google Classroom, we use Imagine Learning, we use Khan Academy, and we use project-based learning. So the way we do this is that, let's say we have a kid for XEdgenuity, which all of the classes in XEdgenuity are aligned to the state standards. It's all relevant information. Kids, it's very user-friendly. I am constantly asking kids for their feedback, and they said it's so user-friendly, you can't not do it. So, but there are some courses that we don't really love, so then we will take a course and we can customize it for every single kid, or just that kid, maybe just 2 courses of that kid. We can also pull it off and do blended learning through project-based learning, and then add that score into XEdgenuity so that the bar for that percentage of the class continues to go up. So all of these things are tools that we use behind the scenes to focus on that Edgenuity class completion. And what we love about Edgenuity, there's some great assessment data in there. There's some actually great research in there that they've recently done. And it's got all these different tools, and we show the kid the tools during their duration of, again, going back to the visual learner. How does your brain like to learn? The auditory learner, some kids are much better putting their earbuds in and listening, so then they can highlight the paragraph, use the read aloud support. There's a note-taking piece in that, and it's a skill for life. So I tell kids when I go to a meeting, I bring my laptop, right? It's a skill set you have to have for life. Again, the blended learning, you put that into the Edgenuity score. So the direct instruction for the classrooms this is a little bit better picture of it. The teacher mentor support each week. So kids come in 2 days a week for 2 hours each time, Monday through Thursday. And Fridays is our documentation day, because there's no way that you're gonna be able to document this unless you designate a date. So under the umbrella of alternative ed, that's where that fits in perfectly. So here's our environment. We do not have desks in a row. We create a comfortable environment and encourage kids to bring in we have one girl who brings in a keyboard, one who brings in a guitar. There's plenty of room for them to be comfortable and figure out what is their brain break gonna be. We also landed 3 grants this year for new furniture and in painting the walls. And so we made that into a project-based learning, and kids measured the walls. They calculated the gallons of paint. They painted with us. And then those scores for whatever math course went into their Edgenuity. So they came in, they got to take a brain break, they painted, then they went to work and then they focused really hard on their Edgenuity, and then they could take another brain break, and they just loved it. So we love for them to come to the building as much as possible. So all of that hard work, basically, you earn this diploma. It's a Redford Union School District virtual learning. We put that on there because it gives them a little technology edge, we think. And Been Working Hard is the name of this student here, and parents laugh with me and kids look at me like I have 3 eyes. They have no idea the humor of that name. So that's what I tell parents. If your kid's been working hard, that's what's gonna happen, is you're gonna get that diploma. So we have our Been Working Hard diploma here in the hallway with our first graduates. 5 out of 7 seniors graduated for last year was our first year, and then this year we had 26 out of 27. And this was seamless during the pandemic. Kids did not want the pass fail. They wanted their grades because they were working really hard for their grades. Again, this is just a little bit more of our numbers. Our kids did attend, colleges. They did go into armed services and the workplace. But the goal of the virtual learning, and I think if I was listening on the other end and not had gone through this yet, I would really focus on this. The goal is to get them connected to the school. It supports all the research. It supports the brain research. They can go to the prom. They can go to the pinning ceremony. They participate in graduation, and they really need to feel connected. So the way that we help them feel connected is we provide each day of the week, Monday through Thursday, a different opportunity for them to come to the building. So we have Link Crew, which is a peer mentor program, and they can come on Mondays to either be mentored by a peer, or if they want a leadership role, they can go to the Link Crew training and be one of the mentors. So we have both ends of the spectrum covered for that. And then where we're at right here is across the street is assisted living facility. And we go there and we play cards on Thursdays with our elderly friends. Now, obviously with COVID, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna swap out that time and work on diversity. So we also have brain breaks with animal therapy. Lots of research on animal therapy. So we bring in puppies about every other month, or probably close to every other month. They are just amazing. They bring great humor and fun to everybody, and it's a great brain break. We also do community service at McGowan. When you have kids do community service who really have low self-esteem and they give to someone else, it refuels their soul. So this social emotional component into the virtual learning program, I think, is really, really huge. This is probably my favorite picture of all. I took this picture when we were coming back from the assisted living facility, and this little person here was just talking. It wasn't bad or anything, but this guy looked at me and said, "I got this. This is my kid." And just had a little chat on the way back of how do you really act in a public setting. And I just thought it was cute because the kid really wasn't even bad. But in his eyes, he wanted to make sure his kid acted totally appropriate in the assisted living facility. So the other thing that we do is we provide the mental health services through Lincoln Behavioral Services. We have a classroom that's empty that we made into like a comfortable little room. So if a kid needs mental health counseling, this is between Lincoln Behavioral Services and the family, but the parent, it's one less appointment that the parent has to make during the week. So they can drop their kid off for 3 hours, do virtual learning for a couple hours, and then the last hour the kid can see their therapist and get it all done in one drop off for the parent. So basically our mindset is relationships are number one, really recognizing trauma and helping kids feel safe. And obviously this is all based on the brain research that I had talked about earlier. This is just our flyer for our program, just to give you a visual at, and then kind of summarizing it all up is our virtual learning is built on the relationships, the XEdgenuity platform, the structure with the brain breaks, because if you don't build this in, a kid is going to feel like a failure. So it's really important to help them understand how their brain works and give their brain a rest and take care of their brain. Support through the Link crew. This is the peer mentoring, community service, and then the mental health. And then these are the resources these are my go-to people. But this Dr. Horatio Sanchez is outstanding. If you haven't heard of him, or look at his videos or read his book, he's just phenomenal. So that's it. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, Marie, that's an amazing amount of great information. And hopefully, as time allows, I've got some follow-up questions for you myself. So reminder to participants in the Q&A, if you have a question for any of the panelists, just go ahead and put that in there. They will try to respond in writing, or they may respond verbally at the end. So next, we're going to move to Mark Thomas, our principal from Northview High School.
Hey, Wendy, thank you. And thanks to all of the people who have joined today. I also want to thank Wendy and Colin and her staff, because I go back, I started as a young administrator with MASSP, and I'm certainly no longer that. It's probably been 25 years with MASP. I go back long enough to remember when Wendy and Colin just started with MASSP. It's been a pleasure to watch their careers and watch them grow and achieve so many different things. But MASSP has been a go-to for me for over 2 decades as far as a trusted place with colleagues and information and so forth. So thanks for putting this together. And my model regarding this is going to reflect a partnership with MASSP, because I've been working, and my district's been working. I brought Colin to our superintendent, and now we're moving into a plan that includes a hybrid model, grades 7 through 12, which I'll talk more about. But just to give you a little background on Northview, I've been here at Northview for 22 years. We are not a suburban district. We are located where I call a suburban. We border Grand Rapids Public, but we also border Rockford, Forest Hills, and Comstock Park. So we border some affluent districts. We border a strong urban center. And in my time, we started, when I began here, with 1% diversity. We're over 40% diversity now. We have tremendous socioeconomic diversity. We have now the racial diversity is so healthy, our gender diversity and so forth. So it's really been a wonderful place for me to be for the last couple of decades as far as being able to grow. And what I mean by that is I've also got plenty of scars to show as far as the process and learning along the way, and realizing the value of having trusted colleagues and people that I can go to, because I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room, but I know who to go to try to figure things out and move from that standpoint. I would also say I go back when Governor Granholm, I helped create the Michigan Merit Curriculum, so you can blame me for Algebra 2. And thank you, Wendy and Colin, for all the work that you guys have done to modify. You thought we were killing puppies and bunnies at that time based on trying to add more math. But at the end of the day, we did improve and raise the bar about what our kids do, and we proved our kids could do more. And the same thing with the Michigan Merit Test and moving to the ACT. And I just completed last year being the Midwest Chair for College Board. So I have deep experience with ACT and SAT. And our work now at Northview is more about, we're trying to straddle the fence. We have 1,300 kids. I have 1,300 students. We got rid of suspension and detention about 18 years ago. I get a half-time assistant principal because he runs our Northview Next Learning and Career Center while doing that as well. So what we believe now is that all kids need some post-secondary training, but they all don't need necessarily a bachelor's degree. And I'm on the workforce board in West Michigan for the last 10 years. And so we've assessed employability skills for the last 10 years. And so as we move forward, we've just realized that we want to try to raise the bar for all of our kids, but that doesn't necessarily mean rigor-wise, but also just in their knowledge of career and career awareness as well, so they can move out and say, we call it kind of a my GPS. You have a better idea of where you want to go, so you want to move forward with that. And in building, it goes back to the pandemic. We were in a block schedule for a number of years. We had to cut that probably 7 years ago because of budgetary concerns. So we were in a 6. Last year when the pandemic hit, we were slower to move a little bit because we did not want to go completely on Zoom. So we, worked with a group that we've had some experience with called Maven. And then John Krause is on this call from Muskegon ISD, a dear friend and trusted colleague. And Maven it is a free platform. And Colin and the MASSP has helped support this as well, which helped us deliver not only career awareness and career preparation content, but also served as a light LMS during that time. So we created, instead of everyday meetings, we created common projects in social studies, science, and English that our 9th through 12th graders could select from, and then our teachers would meet once a week with them. It really did make a lot of sense to parents and kids and staff members. And then we created a 4-week career awareness unit where we focused 1 week on manufacturing, 1 week on agriculture, 1 week on healthcare, so we could highlight that for the kids as well. So it's an example of how we try to think. So transitioning now into this, we were trying to do the same thing. So in speaking with Colin, and Ryan, if you want to bring up our work, I'm going to show you kind of just how the sausage is made. We had meetings this morning. We've been having these conversations. So this is, and I've read a book by a former Navy admiral who talks about blue work and red work. And red work is productivity, and red work is like, on the old industrial lines, for the automotive factories. And blue work is our thinking. And really, we're asked to do both, but it's hard to find time, especially when that clock is ticking. So if we look and scroll down a little bit, if you would, Ryan, to the schedule. If you move that document down a little bit, yeah, right there, what you'll see, and this is an example of what we're going to move to in regards to, we are going to move to, and I guess, Colin, the best way is maybe a 3x3, but we're on a 6-period day. And so what we discussed is, how do we reduce the number of students in our building, and the same thing to support, social distancing, but how do we also continue to try to, give them that academic content? So what we've committed to now is moving to taking that 6-period day, but also compressing it, and we're going to go 3 classes for 9 weeks. Okay, and those will be 2-hour blocks. So we have 2 cohorts. So what you'll see there in marking period 1, that first 9 weeks, our students will have 3 classes when they come here. Cohort A will come here on Mondays and Tuesdays. They'll have 3 courses for 2 hours. And then on Wednesdays, it'll be a deep cleaning day for our district. Okay, and our elementaries just made the decision yesterday. They will be 4 days a week with Wednesdays off. Our high school will have the same thing. Then on Thursday and Friday, the other half of our class will come in for that teacher. And the cohort A will be doing online preparation instruction. All right, so by doing this, we really feel like we can, first of all, narrow the field academically and let our teachers and staff have a little more focus and the ability to spend some time focused on 3 courses. The second thing is, we know that we can then have the ability to try to socially distance in the building, and I have about 1,200 kids, all right, as we navigate that. And right now, we're kind of moving through that regard. And then the other thing is, with this schedule, if we go to phase 3, we know we can do online. We've already done that. If we expand from phase 4 into phase 5 or phase 6, we know we can easily move this schedule back to our traditional schedule. But we are committed to running this for at least a semester, so we don't, have to toggle back and forth. And the second thing is, likely, we're interested to see if we can't even run it for the year, because one of the things we feel is we're also we're moving into a new LMS, all right? And so with that right now, we almost, though, feel, and part of our conversations have been, we're partnering a little bit with Michigan Virtual as well, to look at providing some of those prepackaged courses, because if we know, it's almost like ship shopping at Meijer. If our teachers don't have to do the shopping, if they can have some prepackaged pieces, they then can be able to intervene with kids, support kids, and then more easily work online in order to build success. One of the other things we did last year, and this is an example of how we raised the bar on both sides, we offered AP seminar to every sophomore in our building through our English class. So literally, we wanted all of our kids, no matter what your socioeconomic background or race, to be able to believe that they could do AP work. And we had over a 95% pass rate in that AP Seminar 10 English class. And then we had 115 kids sign up to take the test. And we beat the global average by 0.2% too for AP Seminar. And now we're moving to pre-AP in English 9 this year, because we're trying to encourage kids to take more rigor. While at the same time, though, we're also encouraging more career awareness and career preparation and internships and so forth, because we know that they don't all need that. So it's kind of how we balance that work. But if you want to go through, you'll see we've divided kind of into houses, and you see some of the details in this. So if you scroll back up to the top, if you would, Ryan. This is some work that's come from my counseling team in that blue work, okay, and from our association leadership who we've worked with. So if you move up to the top of that page, yep, you'll see. So right now we work with some of our kids take career KCTC courses at our local ISD. How do we balance that out? How do we handle dual enrollment? How do we do work experience? These are the conversations we've been engaged in right now. Wednesdays, our teachers, one of the benefits of that schedule, normally our teachers teach 5 out of 6. With that schedule now, they will all teach, or they will have an assignment for 6 out of 6. We've been in budgetary cut mode, significant budgetary cut. I had 7 retire this year. We only filled 2.4. So we've been very lean. So this is a gift for us, because now we're going to have an all-day prep on Wednesday. So now we may be able to use that other teaching hour to say, can we reduce class sizes, say in a math or an English? Can we do some interventions? Can we do some other, we know we're going to have some teachers who get ill and need subs. How can we balance that out? So we've been putting that into play. If you'd keep scrolling, Ryan, you see our vacant prep hour. We're talking about that. If you keep moving down, yep, here we go, dividing the houses. We're just not going alphabetical. We're going to look at families, and if they have kids in the middle school or in the elementaries, how can we make sure their cohort A or cohort B aligns? Okay, so we can have them on the same schedule. Special education, we were going to go to a new model this year and do away with team talk courses and so forth, but right now we're in conversations, and we may stick with our current model for a year, just based on this situation. And then you see our master schedule. Running a traditional master, but reducing, the conflicts. Now we're going to have 2 copies of our master per se, and we're working to create this. So in essence, we're going to flip to quarters as opposed to semesters. And we will be running these speed classes, so kids will complete in 9 weeks a semester course by doing 2 hours every day, or not every day, but 2 days a week, and then doing the others online. So it's a hybrid. Our students will be in person and online as well. If parents want kids to be online, we're going to be able to provide that option for them. All right, but it gives us some flexibility and some agility to do that. We're also finding, my superintendent, in meetings with our region, that we're pretty much alone in this approach. All right, which we don't have a lot of necessary collaboration at the regional level with this. I really think a lot of places might be waiting for the governor to pull the trigger so they can point a finger and have a reason to kind of stay in online or do something else. But we feel like we want to be nimble and agile and have the ability to toggle between some things. We have a close working relationship with our association leader. And so this has been very collaborative work. We're putting out the survey to our parents so that we'll get an idea about the numbers who want online versus the numbers who are comfortable coming back, but we know that we're going to have to provide some of everything. So our approach has been to stay fluid and stay agile, and then also knowing that, very honestly, kids are pretty easy. The adults usually present the challenge in most situations. And we know that we're going to have to take time to continue to explain to the adults how we're doing this and build a logic of confidence. And more of it isn't what we're going to do. It's also how we're going to do it and why. We work with a marketing company. A former board member has the largest marketing company in the state, Lambert and Associates. And so our superintendent is wise in the fact that we spend time, and I spend time as well, marketing why we're doing things and explaining that to parents, which builds that logic of confidence and that trust. And then we just troubleshoot from there and do, service work and customer client relations. So that's kind of an overview, Wendy, from what we're going to do. And really appreciate MASSP's help and support.
Awesome job, Mark. Very interesting, and great to have so many different approaches with us today. So I'm hoping that we didn't lose Dr. Vitti. I don't know if he ended up dropping off. Dr. Vitti, did we lose you? All right, I see that we do have Rafe here from Gull Lake. So why don't we jump to you, Rafe? And, great that you were able to join us. I know that you had some technical difficulties getting here and glad you're able to make it. So can you give us an overview of what's going on in Gull Lake?
Yes, thank you. It's good to see everybody after wrestling through some of the technical issues. So I want to do a quick shout out here. On this presentation today, we've got some folks watching that have been absolutely critical to the thing I'm going to talk about next, which is an ISD-wide collaborative for virtual learning. And it's a K-12 piece that we're doing for K-RISA in Gull Lake. Experienced Gull Lake people are leading the charge. So Bobby Joe Stoner, who is our lead person, our director of our virtual partnership, is watching as well as our union president. We had Tia Shoemaker, that's also, I think, watching this presentation, and we've really been working collaboratively. It was important to us when the COVID hit and we started seeing what was going to develop around it, that we try to work in a more broad way than what we had been doing before, that more collaboration would be better, but we were also dealing with the speed of ramping things up. And so when I arrived this past year in Gull Lake Community Schools, Bobby Joe was saying, hey, the option that we have right now at the ISD level, it's not as local as we'd like it to be. What can we do about that? What can we do to involve everybody around this thing we've been doing for the past decade? And maybe we're going to need to scale up for what the demands are going to be for this coming fall. And we were just starting to put out some surveys, and we knew that there was going to be some pretty high demand for families that needed to have another option when the fall returned. So we started working at the roundtable level in K-RISA. And because of our past experience, Gull Lake teachers, those that run the virtual partnership and work with families, we wanted to have that quality experience for the other schools. So in essence, we offered up a chance to work together collaboratively. We had to do some legal work to make that happen. We had to have a conflict waiver signed by all the superintendents, but we had a pretty compelling reason for why we needed to collaborate, and we knew the needs would be great. So superintendents came around, they threw their support behind it. We did the conflict waiver, and now we have a memorandum of understanding for this coming year where we run a pilot that allows us to deliver virtual instruction for all of our families, but allows local districts to keep their families within their schools. We'll have a local mentor that will be assigned at each of the local districts, and students will fill out EDPs, those that are going to do the full 100% virtual learning. And then we're just simply going to coordinate, and we're going to share our services and do that in a way that's really fair. Gull Lake doesn't really make anything off of it because we're putting a bunch of FTE right back to the local district, but it's essentially a way to just scale up for what some of these changes are going to be. I think everybody agrees that things will not go back to the way they were before, that we're really entering a new era. And so what I'd like to do, if Colin could pull up either, I'm just trying to see here how I want to do this.
Either you can present or we can.
Am I able to share screen?
Yes.
All right, let's give this a try and see what happens. I just need to see how it works here. If I do share screen, I want to jump right here. Let's share this up. Okay, how's everybody's view of that so far?
We can see it.
Okay, excellent. So the work that has begun, that is scaling up for the fall, can be seen here. Gull Lake is again providing the online instruction for all of the area schools for those families saying that we're returning for 100% virtual learning. So it's called KRESA Virtual and Innovative Collaborative, and it's operated jointly by KRESA and the participating LEAs. The why is because we needed to have group collaboration. We knew that we were scaling up for a lot of families. We had done our surveys and recognized the percentages between 7 and 12% for a lot of schools, families asking for a 100% online option. The benefit was that it would allow our students in the area to engage with and learn from teachers in the KRESA service area. Students with 504s, IEPs, athletes, that we'd have the ability to keep kids connected at their local district level. Equity, the ability to really have those folks that had that local support in mind. That was one of the big benefits that we saw. And also that we could do professional development on a broader level. We're all trying to scale up. I heard other people talking about the need to maybe toggle back and forth or commit for a semester or for a year. We're very interested in making a program eventually allow us to be able to have some congruence between the daily classroom and the online at-home learning setting as well, if we can accomplish that. So the difference is, what we had to offer before in KRESA was that we just had credit recovery options for grades 9-12. We didn't have a full-time option at the KRESA level. And we did provide a full-time virtual option, but we had vendor teachers assigned. This just gave us local quality, best practice folks to be assigned for our kids locally. And we felt very strongly about that if we could make that happen. So we also didn't have that K-5 component. And yet we knew that we were going to have all those ages represented for the fall. So I know time is of the essence here. How does it work? We're essentially, we already have something working within KRESA that is education for employment. And everybody just kind of, purchases the service and the kids get to go to those classes. And so we just are essentially acting kind of in that model. Gull Lake will enroll students, but then we'll just invoice back those local districts for what it costs us to run that. And you'll see the cost structure a little bit later. I think you'll be surprised at just the fact that it really is what it's designed to be. It's not skimming off the top. It's literally giving back the FTE that we don't spend to that local district, because we know that's going to be important as well. So essentially what we're doing is we're piloting. I'm going to see here if I can make this a little bit bigger for folks. Just see, whoops, hang on a second. I think I just made it disappear for y'all. Here we go. So we, in the process of putting this together, like I said, we stepped up, and what we offered is we put a course catalog together for the KRESA website that allows us to use Michigan virtual courses. And we're currently investigating Maven as well, because you know, the upper level courses for Michigan Virtual, the 70 courses that can be split out into their component standards is of interest to us right now. We're going to see how far we can go with that. But the structure we have, KVIC pilot is a cost recovery program. The local district enrolls the student and collects the FTE. The district then pays Gull Lake Community Schools tuition for each student. The difference between the FTE and tuition stays with the district. I just had described that earlier. The course catalog is up on the main site that's going up there. It satisfies all requirements of the revised school code, state aid, Michigan Pupil Accounting Manual. These are all the things that we're looking at. And of course, we're hoping, I heard other people talk about this, we're hoping that some type of flexibility is going to be offered if we have to toggle into phases 1 through 3. We want to make sure that we can keep things seamless for all of our families. And for these students who sign up at the start of the year, their year is going to go in a very uninterrupted way. They're going to have all the support they need. Local boards have to approve all of the courses that will be offered on that KVIC website to follow, you know, the guidelines that we have there, so we don't risk losing FTE. We're using established vendors, as I mentioned, Michigan Virtual and Lincoln Learning. Those are two very vetted resources that we have. We want to make sure that families have all the resources at home for the at-home learning. So for this pilot year, teachers of record are going to be supplied by Gull Lake Virtual Partnership. These teachers are going to implement everything. They're going to facilitate learning. And if we need to scale up in other districts because there's a lot of demand, we'll be helping with that process as well. We want to really be there for all of the local school districts within the KRESA. In the process, as you know on the slide here, it says creates an I do, the vendor content, and then a we do, the facilitating of that learning. A lot of our families, all of you know, the big request for this coming fall was it's got to be a little bit different than what we rolled out in the spring. And so I think this one definitely fits the bill. So there's more pieces here. I'm going to do a quick little look at the cost. This is the one that our superintendents kind of said, are you serious? This is really how it works. So the approximate FTE per student, you know, when we took a proration even, using kind of that original number that we had, you can see what the cost is to deliver and how much stays with the district in this model. And that's a really significant piece. You know, we wanted to help local districts be able to serve their families so that families wouldn't walk away and have to make other choices.
Great.
And that all, you know, we didn't want, yes, can you hear me?
Yes. I see that you've got quite a few more slides, and I am also recognizing the time that we have left. So if you don't
Sure.
mind, can I jump back to you? Because I would like to provide Dr. Vitti the opportunity to share with us what's happening in DPSCD. And I'm sure many people are following what's going on in DPSCD. Just being the largest district in the state certainly garners a lot of attention. And when we see what's happening right now with summer school already starting and in-person face-to-face instruction happening, it's been interesting to see the positive response from families in Detroit looking for that option now. And so I'm wondering, what are you thinking for the fall? And I've certainly seen a lot of your posts online recently advocating for face-to-face instruction, but also recognizing, I'm sure, that you are going to have a percentage of families who do want that face-to-face option. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to share. And thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Vitti.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Apologize for having to step away, yet again dealing with an unexpected emergency, so I had to pick up the phone. So again, thank you for having me. For everyone on the panel, thank you for what you do. We all work extremely hard and through difficult times, and this is significantly different for all of us. But as always, we do our best to try to serve children and families. And I just thank all of you for being public educators in your own way. Thank you. So in Detroit, we're at the epicenter of trying to figure this all out. And our philosophy right now, and we were at this point about a month ago, is we have to be as nimble and flexible as we can to serve parents and children based on their needs and where they're at. We philosophically believe that the best approach for the fall is to empower parents to decide whether they want face-to-face or online, and not to be one size all in our approach to doing that. For some of our parents, they're afraid to send their children back to school, and you can understand that. And that's why we believe an online option should be available to them. For some other parents, they realized that spring online learning did not work for their child because of just learning differences or preference, that they themselves are not comfortable being the main academic support at home, or socioeconomically they're not in a position to be able to stay at home or have someone from their family or an extended family support their child while they're at home. So in no way are we saying that the risk of COVID is not real. It is real, but we believe COVID is not going away. We feel like we know more about COVID now than we did in March when the district advocated for a complete shutdown. Unlike other districts, and we believe all districts should have the resources that we've been able to have in DPSCD, we received $80 million through CARES Act money to fund a different environment in school. So as we advocate for this combination of face-to-face and online, we are implementing safety procedures and equipment and standards that are at the highest level of recommendations from the CDC, American Federation of Teachers, Michigan's Safe Start Plan, which will require all employees to be COVID tested before they come back. We have temperature check machines at each of our doors at the district office level and at schools. Students will go through a verbal symptoms check review before they enter the building. We have ample amount of sanitizer in classrooms, on school buses. We're expanding our cleaning contracts for schools and buses and district buildings. We are providing a mask to all of our employees and all of our students and any visitors that enter the school. Masks have to be worn throughout the day in classrooms, in hallways, on the buses. That includes our employees. We are expanding our contracting of nurses so that we'll have a nurse at every one of our buildings. Just as a reminder, we have 50,000 students. We have about 100 school buildings. So I think we're in a position to say we can offer face-to-face learning and implement the best safety procedures because of the CARES Act money. So one thing that I would say is that I would say that online learning is not sustainable for all children for a long period of time. I think every school district has to make the decision that they feel is best for their children and their families. And I think every school district in Michigan should be empowered to make a decision that they think is best, not the federal government or the state government. And I would say the federal government and state government have to do a better job of providing the resources for districts and schools to implement the kind of safe environment that I think we're going to be able to provide with COVID being a reality. I think one question that we haven't been able to answer yet and we're working through is the testing of students. So obviously a federal judge randomly, not connected necessarily to even best practice, required us to test students. We're in the process of testing students. We're not against the testing of students, but we believe that that should be required of all Detroit children, whether it's traditional public schools or charter schools, and possibly throughout Wayne County, because then it becomes an inequitable responsibility that parents have, where other parents in other school districts wouldn't have, at least in the area. I talked a lot, and I have been talking a lot about face-to-face, but we are in a much better position to offer online learning this year as well, based on the business community's investment. All of our children will have a device come the fall and internet service. So that is what we could not provide in the spring. So that empowers all parents to then make a decision on whether they want face-to-face or online. All of our curriculum now will be accessible online. We are using Schoology as the platform to facilitate learning. So assignments can be gained through the platform. Hopefully we'll be able to give grades through that platform. We'll use Teams as a way to engage students that are home through the curriculum. And so our process right now is we've been engaging parents, but we're going to continue to do that to determine how many want face-to-face or how many online at each individual school. Then we'll know by grade level how many teachers we need to provide that. Our polling right now, our surveying of parents are telling us we're going to have no more than 50% of students back in schools if we offer a combination of two. So that allows us to social distance, have lower class sizes, and to meet that safety standard. Then we'll look at how many teachers we need by grade level. We'll ask teachers first who's willing to do face-to-face, who's willing to do online. I think the national and state narrative is a bit skewed. I don't believe every teacher actually wants to go back online. Many do, and I think they should have the opportunity to do that. But a lot of teachers want to do face-to-face and prefer face-to-face over online. So we'll make it voluntary at first, and then we'll look at our numbers to determine what next if we don't have enough teachers willing to do face-to-face. We're open to hazard pay, paying teachers more for face-to-face instruction than online. That's something that we'd have to negotiate with our union that we're working through. But I feel much better about where we are with online learning than we were in the spring because of the device and internet access and just modernizing our curriculum to be accessible online. Last year, we had to take lessons from the current curriculum and offer the online learning that way. Now we'll just have a fluid process from a curriculum point of view because of Schoology as a platform and just allowing our curriculum to be accessible online, whereas before we couldn't do that. So that's a large overview. I am worried about the current conversation at the legislative level and even a bit from the governor's office. It seems like it's going to be face-to-face or nothing, or if online, it has to be a private solution, not something that the school systems can offer through their own teachers. I'm worried about that. I don't think that that's equitable and really the best way forward. I think in the end, I'm hoping that the legislature and the governor will allow parents to choose face-to-face or online, and then school systems and schools go from there to meet the needs of parents. I think that also allows for a safer face-to-face reentry because you are offering the online simultaneously with the face-to-face. So open to questions, concerns, feedback. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, knowing that with your initial survey saying 50% approximately of your parents are thinking an online option might be better for the fall, would you look at an ability for them to re-enter like midway through the year? Let's say, they decided at the semester, well, things are better, not as scary as I thought. I'd like my child to return.
Yeah, so really, if you look at our survey, it's anywhere from 30 to 50%, I think, was where we'll end up with face-to-face. And so that'll be higher or lower based on the individual school. But to your question, our initial thinking is to require parents to make a decision for at least a quarter, where they, up front, they would say face-to-face or online before the school year starts. And that would be a decision they would have to stay committed to for the quarter. Now, we all know that there could be extenuating circumstances. The home situation changes. I thought I could work from home. Now I can't work from home. Grandmother was going to be able to watch a child, grandmother's sick. There's a lot of things that could happen. So I think we would always be flexible, but try to stay true to that quarter commitment. There's been conversation about expanding it to a semester, but I feel probably more comfortable with the quarter commitment. And I do believe that as the year goes, we'll actually see more parents pick the face-to-face option than the online option.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I know how crazy busy you are, so if you need to drop off, We appreciate the time that you were able to allocate to us today. And I have a couple other questions for some of our other panelists. So Marie, when you were speaking, you were talking about the fact that you have your own school code for your alternative high school. So I'm sure that more students in Redford Union schools might be wanting that online option this year. Will those students then be placed in the alternative high school in terms of just school code and kind of the management, or will they stay in Redford Union, you know, like kind of with the high school, but more of that hybrid approach? Oh, you've got to unmute, Marie.
Yeah, the buildings are going to keep their own students, and they're going to do the online through their buildings. We have a separate building code for students who are coming to us under the umbrella of alternative ed. So the buildings are going to maintain their online status with their buildings that they're currently in. So the buildings have moved to online as well, some different platforms.
Fantastic. Well, this was really interesting today, everyone, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to be here. And I think, you know, looking at the variety of people that we've had and the platforms that you're using and the level of collaboration, like with the KRISA group, versus Mark feeling like, oh, we're the only people in our county that are going to go with this approach. There's so many different things happening out there, and I think that the creativity of Michigan educators is really to be commended, because everyone is trying to respond to what's in the best interest of their students and their school community. And I think that's really amazing. So I'd like to reserve the right to recall all of you as witnesses in the future, because I think that we'll need a follow-up from all of you, and to be able to have an opportunity to continue this dialogue, because as every single one of you indicated, this is our plan for now. This is how we're starting. You know, where this is going to go throughout the year, I think is going to be cause for us to continue the dialogue and continue to share what is and is not working. So I appreciate everyone's honesty and ability to participate. So in closing, we do want to thank all of our panelists again for joining us today. And we do have 2 Leader2Leader webinars planned again for next week. We're going to be spending some time going over resources that we have available from Michigan Virtual and from the ISD's, the General Education Leadership Network, who have put together some really great resources that I think all schools would find to be useful. So you will find those too. And we also have an Achievement Gap webinar that we have coming up on August 6th that you might want to consider when we're looking at what those gaps are. So thanks again for everyone. We'll have this recording available along with the slides that each presenter shared. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.